Well, hello and welcome back to the Daily Brew, the devotional where every day we drink a new brew of coffee and we see what God is brewing for us in the Bible. Yes, it's cheesy, but it's true. And you join me here in Auckland, New Zealand on a cold, wet, kind of day. I've got my jackets back on because it's freezing cold, but it is good to have you here with me no matter where you are in the world. Joining me for today, I'm looking forward to getting into day 194 of 365 days of Bible reading. Massive welcome to all of you on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of you on all of the other platforms that people tune in on. It is great to have you here with me today, and I'm looking forward to getting into today's scriptures. Speaking of, let's talk about what scriptures we're going to be reading today. Psalm 84, verse 8 to 12, Romans chapter 1, verse 18 to 32, and 2 Kings chapter 24, verse 8 to chapter 25, verse 30. So those are the scriptures that we're going to be reading today. Make sure you get into those at some point. Be blessing you very much to do so. But let's get into our brew for today and talk coffee. And it is our last time having the Supremo from Atomic. It's the espresso, which is what we're going to be trying today. Looking forward to getting into that. We're looking for marshmallow, cocoa nib, and clove. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to see if this gives us any of those flavor profiles on the espresso. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Let's give it a go right now and see what we've got. Wow. Out of all of the brewing types we've had so far, from memory, this is the one that stands out the most. It's got the most full-bodied flavor. It's wonderful. It starts quite sweet and quite strong, quite sweet. And then there's a lovely aftertaste that washes through like marshmallow. For the first time, I'm actually getting that marshmallow in the flavoring. So I enjoy this actually as a coffee. I enjoy it. I actually reckon that I could easily have this on the espresso every single day. I'm going to give this a 9.2. It's that good. It's that flavorsome. It's so full-bodied. The lingering taste is sweet and lovely. So you've got to give this a go. This one I'm actually recommending for you to give it a go. From Atomic Coffee, the Supremo beans. Give it a go. Espresso is the way to go on this, by the way. It is phenomenal. There you go. There's our brew for today. No matter what you're drinking, I hope that you are ready for our Bible, the reason that we are here today. What a joy and privilege it is that we have as Christians to be able to walk with the Lord and enjoy relationship with Him. Worship and prayer unlock this for us as Christians. The second part of the psalm continues on from yesterday, Psalm 84. Really, it's all about the blessing of being able to worship God and dwell with Him, which for the people in the ancient Near East would have been at the temple in Jerusalem. Better is one day in the presence of God or His house. That's referred to as courts because of the context of the temple, than 1,000 elsewhere. The psalmist writes that he would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. Now, we've got to be careful today that we do not favor dwelling in the tents of the wicked over being in God's house. For the ancient Near East, they lived in tents. There's a clear delineation being made here that it's better to be in and around the house of God than staying at home. I love online services and I love watching messages during the week, but it's no substitute for the house of God. So let's endeavor to be people who dwell in His house, worshiping Him, and not in our wicked tents, worshiping ourselves. The reality is that we become like what we worship. Paul brings this message today reflecting on the problem with the heart of mankind. The problem is that we worship and serve created things rather than the Creator. What a challenging thought. What am I actually worshiping today? Do I worship the created things or do I worship the Creator Himself? Annalise and I, at the time of recording this right now and releasing this devotional day 194, we've decided to take a moment in our lives and fast mindless TV watching and Instagram, social media scrolling. Now, there's nothing wrong with those things, but we found ourselves drifting from the heart of God, finding ourselves being filled with fear, filled with worry, filled with even just being distant from each other. We're not as strong in our marriage as we should be. And what we've realized is that we've actually been worshiping these things, social media, television shows, Netflix, etc. And the reason that we've realized we're worshiping them is because what we've done is that we have spent more time. I lost my place in my notes, but I've got it now. We've spent more time on those things than we have with each other and with our Creator. In effect, we've worshipped the created things over our Creator. As a byproduct, we're tired, lethargic, and like I said already, that we're feeling distant from each other. So we've decided to not worship the created things. Worship is defined by the Webster's Dictionary as to adore, idolize, esteem, place worth upon, to bring reverence to, homage, etc. Now, the reality is that truly defining worship proves more difficult because it's both an attitude and an act. So the worship that we're talking about from a Christian perspective, it's more than just an act that we do, but it's an attitude that we carry. To worship someone or something is whatever we give our attention, focus, time, and money to. Why? Why these four things? Because these four things are close to our heart. We worship as we give these things because we're giving our hearts towards whoever and whatever we focus on, give our attention to, spend time with, and give towards. The reality is that we do have a tension in our world between the Creator and the created things. What we should see through created things is the Creator. The created things should point us to a wonderful, mighty, majestic Creator who is deserved of our worship. If we don't worship Him, but the things that are created, we find ourselves being given over to our own ways. This is largely the world that we live in now. People who have been given over to their own sinful desires. We eventually will learn from the terrible consequences that follow, but we will be given over to our sinful desires first. When we look through Scripture, particularly in the Old Testament, we see this in motion over and over again. God's people are eventually given over to their sinful desires and worship the created things, suffer, and then return to God. In the middle of this, there are some who keep worshiping God, and I want to be in that category. While the rest of the world turns away from God, I want to be in the category that continues to worship God. I don't want to be in the mass who have turned away, but in the some who worship God. As a result, when we live a life worshiping Him, we become more like Him and live the life that God has for us to live. So what do we do in response to a world driving away from God? We have to pray for the restoration of our nations. That's what we have to do. In our passage in Kings, we see that the people of God have been through the hardest time, but they still have hope for the future. The book of Kings is coming to a close. We're reading the final few chapters, and in its final moments, we're witnessing the terrible consequences of a nation that has, as Paul writes in the New Testament, turned from worshiping God to worshiping idols or the created things. The result of this is the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and the people going into exile. This is always the result of people turning from worshiping God to worshiping created things. It's the destruction of God's house, both the building and the people who are the temples of the Holy Spirit, and people finding themselves lost in exile. And so we have a choice. We have a choice to make. Will we be men and women who worship the Lord and live in prosperity, or will we be people who worship created things, live in exile, destruction, and ruin? As the book of Kings ends today, we see a small glimmer of hope. In the 37th year of exile, another guy with a random name, let me give it a try, Jehoiachin, king of Jehoiachin. Why? Anyway, this dude, king of Judah, he is released from prison and is invited to eat at the king's table. This is a promise that the exile will not last forever. The people of God will return to him. They will rebuild the temple and they will begin to worship once more. That's the difference in a nation that either worships God or doesn't.
3, 2,
Verse of the day. Verse of the day today, Psalm 84 verse 12 says, Lord Almighty, blessed is the one who trusts in you. Blessed is the one who trusts in you. Do you trust in the Lord? Like properly? Because if you do, blessings will follow. Blessings on the other end of the decision to trust in the Lord. And that is it for today. The Daily Brew done and dusted, day 194 of 365 days. Thank you so much for joining me today. No matter where you are around the world, I'm praying God speaks to you through the scriptures and that you go deeper into your relationship with Him. Continue on this journey. It is a fantastic journey for you to go on. I'm praying for you as you do. Thank you so much for joining me no matter where you are today on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube, on any of the other platforms as well, but especially on those three main platforms. It is great to have you with us today. And by us, I mean you, me, and anybody else doing this devotional journey together. Thank you to everybody who's taken a moment and followed us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for doing that and rating the podcast, and for you on YouTube for clicking that subscribe button and clicking the bell so you never miss a devotional upload. That is it though for today. Join us back here tomorrow for another day of the Daily Brew, day 195. Until then though, if it's the start of your day, have a great rest of your day. Unless it's sleep time, good night, sleep tight, and we'll see you tomorrow back here on the Daily Brew.